These days, the headlines are enough to make you pull your hair out. In fact, 60% of Americans are losing it.
Welcome to this episode of the American Medical Podcast with our host, Dr. Michael Kanosky, a board-certified plastic surgeon, hair restoration specialist, and medical director of AMP Mississippi.
We have about 100,000 hairs on our scalp. Quite a number. You might have a few extra, a few less, but the bottom line is we have lots and lots of them. What's also interesting is that we have two basic types of hairs. We have terminal, these are the thick, heavy hairs, particularly on the back and the sides, and the more thin villus hairs on the frontal areas. Villus hairs are more like the hairs on the back of your hand. They're thinner, and these are the hairs that genetically you're prone to lose, whether you're a guy or a girl. Also, hair is very simple as far as its structure. It's really made of a protein, keratin, and that protein is covered by a coating of melanin, and that gives us the color of your hair. As we get a little older or genetically disposed or have some kind of stress in our life, the body just doesn't make as much melanin anymore, and white hair is simply the pure keratin that we see without some type of color coating. And finally, most people think that hair grows very rapidly. It doesn't. It grows about 2 sheets of paper thickness a day, or about 1 centimeter or less than 1/2 inch per month. So hair growth is a very, very slow thing, actually. What does a hair and hair follicle unit actually look like? And this is a picture on the left of a normal appearing hair follicle that's buried down into the deep parts of the skin. And you notice that at the very bottom, the little red line is a little hair follicle blood vessel that comes up and nourishes it. And what we have on the right side of the screen is where the hair follicle doesn't get the nourishment it needs, and it actually shrinks in size and gets smaller and is not able to be thick, heavy, and this is the process that happens when you start getting thin hair and then start losing your hair. So this gives you a basic idea of what the hair follicle looks like, and the brown thing that you see pulling through the hair is the actual hair shaft made out of keratin. How do we gauge, or how do we tell how much hair loss people have? You know, you can look at somebody and tell their hair's a little thinner, but we want a systematic way to tell what your hair loss is like. And there are actually 2 important systems that you'll hear us talking about when you come into our office. For men, it's the Norwood system. For ladies, the Ludwig system. The way men and women lose their hair, very different. We guys just simply march back. Your frontal hairline gets higher and higher. You start to lose a little bit on the crown or the very top of the scalp, and eventually you end up with just a rim of hair around the very sides of the scalp. For ladies, it's a very different pattern of loss. For ladies, it's a loss in the entire top of the scalp all at one time, with a gradual thinning until it becomes thinner and thinner and thinner. We often say that patients will wind up almost like a dandelion. If you've ever seen a dandelion flower, just before it blows away in the wind with all the little seeds, you'll notice how very thin and wispy those little lines are. That's exactly what women with very advanced hair loss could look like. I'd also like to tell you that about half the people that lose their hair are ladies, half men. So it's a myth that only men lose hair. Now, it is true that ladies can hide the problem for a greater degree than men can, but both of us have that problem. Let's talk a little bit about some causes of hair loss. There are a lot of causes, and this crowded slide tells you the various types of things that can cause problems. Everything from thermal or burn injuries to trauma, to stress, to injuries, car accidents and such. You can have degloving accidents where you actually have hair that's pulled. You can have stress in your life, everything from the death of a loved one to a divorce, to any types of health problems that can produce stress. Sometimes medications can cause hair loss. And even a pregnancy is notorious for causing a lot of hair loss after the baby's born. And finally, we do see patients who've had problems with things such as cancer. They've had to have chemotherapy and so forth. They'll lose a lot of their hair, and we can certainly help with any and all of these causes. You know, one of the main causes of hair loss that's often overlooked and underestimated is stress. Stress in your life, be it from an injury and your body needs to heal. If it's from a major problem such as the loss of a loved one and the stresses that brings, or a change in life such as a divorce, or stress from an operation, or even stress that your body obtains or has from being pregnant, all of those stresses on your body can easily produce hair loss. And it can be very profound, with people losing a lot and sometimes half or more of your hair. And the fact is that we have a lot of great solutions now to prevent that, to head that off, so that we can produce less loss, get your hair back to normal, make it look better than it ever was before. One of the things that happens is that our body's got a certain amount of energy. And when you're stressed, your body's brain distributes that energy to the areas that need it most. Well, let's just say that the hair, the scalp, isn't getting the priority it needs. Gets less energy, gets shortchanged, and so the hair just kind of withers on the vine, if you will. It's not being irrigated, like when the garden gets dry and you're not giving it some water. Our job is to provide that irrigation back to you to get that hair back to where you need it to be. And we've seen patients of all ages, both guys and girls, who've had problems with stress in their life and have had some major loss. And I think we've had excellent results with those patients. One of the things that we know about stress and other problems in the body is that hormone levels can go wacky in your body. Men with testosterone, and we know that low testosterone is actually associated with hair loss. And for women who have estrogen, progesterone, and various other hormones, we know that once they get out of balance, you can have major hair loss. So one of the things we do is we test for hormone levels, and then we try to restore your natural hormone levels to natural levels. One other thing that's very underappreciated with ladies is that the thyroid hormones, thyroid gland, which is in your neck. Low thyroid levels are notorious for causing a lot of major hair loss, particularly in women. And even really high thyroid levels can actually speed up different mechanisms in our body, and actually that stress can cause hair loss. So either of the two extremes are notorious for hair loss. And we also do a lot of testing for that. And we feel strongly that alone is a good reason for you to come in to see a specialist. We're certainly available, and the idea is we'll get to the bottom of it much quicker, rather than trying home remedies, shampoos, creams, powders, and so forth that are often unproven.
To hear more episodes of the American Medical Podcast with Dr. Kanosky and his medical and wellness guests, follow us online. American Medical Podcasts, amplifying health and wellness.